There's a lot to unpack today for the Washington Commanders, starting with a receiver market shakeup that actually works in this front office's favor, followed by a betting market that's making it clearer by the day where Stefon Diggs is likely headed. Add in a fresh set of training camp notes covering everything from the running back competition to a genuine defensive breakout candidate, and there's plenty to break down. Let's start with the news that dropped overnight. Deebo Samuel has officially signed with the San Francisco 49ers on a one-year deal worth up to $7 million. According to a report from Jordan Schultz, Deebo reportedly did have some interest in a potential return to Washington, but ultimately the pull of going back to San Francisco proved too strong for the former All-Pro to pass up. And honestly, that outcome tracks with what most people around this situation expected all along. This front office likely never had serious interest in bringing Deebo back to Washington in the first place. So what does his departure actually mean for the Commanders? Simple. It removes one name from the equation and leaves exactly one realistic remaining option on the wide receiver market: Stefon Diggs. And the signal around that specific situation just keeps getting louder. According to ESPN's John Keim, if there's one player this front office would realistically sign right now, it's Diggs, and Keim specifically noted that Washington is monitoring the situation, which typically signals genuine active interest rather than idle curiosity. Multiple other respected national reporters have echoed similar sentiments, with indications that this front office feels comfortable with the specific character considerations that sometimes follow Diggs around. And here's a genuinely fascinating data point worth sharing. On prediction markets tracking his eventual destination, Washington's odds have steadily climbed from 40% a few weeks ago to 50% just days ago, and now sit at a commanding 70%, with the next closest competitors, Baltimore and Kansas City, sitting at a mere 9% each. That's about as clear a signal as the betting markets can send that this deal increasingly looks like a matter of when, not if. There's also a reasonable financial argument connecting the Deebo signing directly to this Diggs pursuit. Deebo landing at $7 million annually gives this front office a very real, very recent market comparison to work from. Diggs actually outproduced Deebo statistically last season, topping 1,000 receiving yards compared to Deebo's 727, so there's a reasonable expectation his price tag lands somewhere modestly higher, but not dramatically so, likely somewhere in the $8 to $12 million range for a single season. And here's the honest case for why this signing makes complete sense for this specific roster. This receiver room, beyond Terry McLaurin and promising rookie Antonio Williams, is largely full of unproven commodities. De'Ami Brown has looked genuinely great throughout the offseason and into camp, and Luke McCaffrey flashed real promise last season before a late injury cut his year short, but relying on Treylon Burks to stay healthy for a full season remains a genuinely risky bet given his extensive injury history. Even acknowledging that he possesses every physical tool needed to be a legitimately dangerous number 2 receiver when actually available, adding a proven, motivated veteran like Diggs on a modest one-year deal doesn't need to come at the expense of developing these younger pieces. It simply provides a level of reliable insurance this receiver room currently lacks. The statistical case for Diggs remains compelling too. Last season with New England, he posted 85 receptions, good for 12th in the league, and over 1,300 receiving yards, good for 16th. His touchdown total and yards per catch average were admittedly underwhelming by comparison, but the sheer receiving volume alone suggests a player still fully capable of producing somewhere in the range of 800 to 1,000 yards in a full, healthy season. For a receiver room searching for exactly that kind of proven floor, that would represent a genuinely significant addition. Now let's shift to some broader training camp notes worth knowing, courtesy of continued reporting from John Keim covering the first couple days of camp. As expected, the defense remains a step ahead of the offense early on, completely normal given that the offense is still working through installing new concepts, timing, and overall rhythm. Edge rusher Odafe Owe has emerged as one of the most notable standouts through this stretch, showing off genuine speed, explosiveness, and consistent pressure, the kind of pure bend off the edge this roster simply hasn't had in recent memory. Linebacker Frankie Louvu has also been identified as a genuine bounce-back candidate this season, with indications that this coaching staff plans to deploy him more effectively to his actual strengths, particularly as a true blitzing linebacker, which is exactly where he's historically been most dangerous. That said, there's a reasonable expectation that rookie linebacker Sonny Styles could gradually eat into some of that playing time as the season progresses, simply because this coaching staff has a well-established pattern of making rookies, regardless of draft position, earn their opportunities incrementally rather than handing them significant roles immediately. On the offensive side, there's been a recurring theme of drops throughout camp, and it's been specifically framed as more of a broader offensive execution issue rather than solely a receiver problem. That context reinforces the earlier point about needing additional proven reliability at the position. At running back, there's a genuinely fascinating competition brewing that deserves more attention than it's currently getting. Beyond the presumed lead role, there's a real subplot involving Jerome Ford and Jeremy McNichols battling for a complementary role, an underrated camp battle worth watching closely. There's also a notable competition for early down and receiving work between Bill Krosky-Merritt and Rashad White, with Krosky-Merritt already dealing with a fumble issue in camp, albeit reportedly after the play had technically ended. White, by contrast, offers a more complete overall skill set. Reliable pass protection, solid receiving ability out of the backfield, exactly the well-rounded profile this coaching staff has been hoping Krosky-Merritt would eventually develop into himself. There's also a name worth monitoring more closely than casual buzz might suggest: running back Robert Henry Jr., who's continued coming up in serious reporting circles as a real player to watch in this specific competition. It's also worth remembering the broader limitation of evaluating certain position battles this early in camp without pads. It's genuinely difficult to fully assess trench-based competitions like the center battle between Nick Allegretti, Matt Golden, and Julian Good-Jones, or the left guard battle between Brandon Coleman and Chris Paul, since true physicality and contact simply can't be shown yet. The same logic applies to running backs, who can't fully lower a shoulder and truly test contact balance until real pads come on. One position battle that can be fully and fairly evaluated right now, though, is the kicking competition, since kickers never wear the same protective gear regardless of padding status elsewhere on the roster. Both kickers went a perfect 6 for 6 in a recent practice, setting up what should be a genuinely competitive battle stretching all the way through the remainder of the summer. So here's where things stand as camp continues rolling forward. For Washington, Deebo Samuel officially off the board, effectively clearing the runway for a Stefon Diggs signing that betting markets increasingly view as a near certainty. A defense continuing to show real early promise, headlined by Odafe Owe's disruptive presence and Frankie Louvu's bounce-back potential. A genuinely compelling, somewhat underrated running back competition brewing behind the scenes, and a handful of position battles that will simply have to wait for pads before they can be fairly judged. So tell us, are you fully convinced Stefon Diggs ends up in Washington at this point? And which of these running back battles are you most looking forward to watching play out over the rest of camp? Let us know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single update as training camp continues to unfold. There's a lot more to track in the days ahead, and we'll be right back here with the next update very soon. Hail to the Commanders!